Over 1 million Japanese soldiers and officers were held captive in the USSR after Japan's surrender in 1945. Until the early 1950s, they worked at the most difficult sites: coal mines, machine building plants, logging, and construction. Residents of the Soviet Union were surprised by some peculiarities of Japanese life and living. In the post-war years, all residents of the Soviet Union faced food shortages. The prisoners of war had a certain ration, and the Japanese soldiers had a slightly larger and more varied ration than the Germans. They had to be given 300 grams of bread, 100 grams of cereals, 50 grams of meat or 100 grams of fish, and 600 grams of vegetables. A small portion of rice and miso bean paste was added to the basic ration. But all of this was plundered and only a small portion of the food reached the prisoners. The portion size was so small that people were half-starved, and many did not hold back and stole food from their comrades. One of the captured Japanese soldiers, Kyuchi Nobuo, wrote in his memoirs, "I and my comrades, while stealing food, felt an acute sense of shame." Another culinary oddity of the samurai was the preparation of snakes, frogs, and grasshoppers. The prisoners themselves caught them, and having cooked them according to a certain recipe, used them for food. The guards were surprised that the Japanese had no division of dishes into first and second. They put everything in one bowl, mixed, and ate. Cleanliness and hygiene in the Japanese were and are in the first place. Even in captivity, samurai tried to watch their appearance. Baths were an extremely rare pleasure, and water, which was issued daily, was not enough. So very often Japanese soldiers could be seen near the columns. They undressed and washed naked in the middle of the street without any shame, as nudity in the land of the rising sun was not something shameful. Japanese discipline is second only to cleanliness. In the POW camps, all the guards noted the coordinated actions of the samurai. They obeyed the orders of their commanders unconditionally, clearly followed the instructions, and did not violate the labor regime, unlike the Germans and Hungarians. The Soviet people were also surprised by the peculiar manner of dress of the Japanese prisoners of war. When the cold weather came, the samurai wore old cotton coats and budnakas, which they were given in the warehouse. The clothes did not always fit, so the Japanese looked ridiculous in them. They wore their uniforms in the warm season and took great care of them. And they made their own shoes using ropes, tarpaulins, and wood. The Japanese are not only disciplined and clean, but also very responsible. They did all the work assigned to them carefully, qualitatively, and conscientiously. In his memoirs, Kyuchi Nobuo wrote that very often Russian guards shouted, "Hey, Yabansky, scare, scare," hastening them to do the assigned work. But the samurai did not tolerate work at speed, so they continued to do their work slowly but qualitatively. Haste angered them very much because the quality suffered, which they could not allow. Many Japanese prisoners of war, after decades, remember with warmth the years spent in the USSR. Some even traveled to Russia to meet with camp staff, with whom they developed friendly relations. Kyuchi Nobuo wrote that he was pleasantly surprised that in this multinational country, there is no disregard for people of other nationalities.